Chapter 3271, Jackpot Among the people that Light King was facing, Di Hao and the people from the Temporal Temple were undoubtedly on Jian Wushuang's side. As for the Underworld Emperor and Tai Ta, the Underworld Emperor owed Jian Wushuang a favor. In addition, the three of them had been chatting for the past few days and had developed a certain friendship. If Light King came to find trouble with Jian Wushuang, of course, the two of them would also choose to help Jian Wushuang. In such a situation, if the Light King still wanted to attack Jian Wushuang, he would indeed be asking for trouble. Don't misunderstand. The Light King looked around at the people in front of him, but he smiled and said, I didn't come to find Heavenly Sword Marquis to kill him like last time. After all, I only accepted the invitation from the Three Saint Realms, and the Three Saint Realms offered me a condition that I couldn't refuse. But since the siege, I have done what I should do. What happens between you and the three major businesses has nothing to do with me. I'm not here for anything else. I'm here for the evaluation of your killing power. Oh! Jian Wushuang's expression changed. Heavenly Sword Marquis, I have no objection to your being called number one in terms of your life-saving ability and assassination ability. However, I don't agree with you that your killing power is number one. After all, I have always thought that my killing power is the strongest among the immortal saints. Therefore, I really want to compete with you. Light King's eyes sparkled. You and I will use our strongest move and see who is more powerful. What do you think? I see. Jian Wushuang nodded secretly. He finally understood the purpose of the Light King's visit. To put it bluntly, he was not satisfied with the evaluation of his killing power on the True Saint list. The Light King has always been arrogant and confident in his own strength. Brother Heavenly Marquis, you were only ranked first in your life-saving ability and assassination ability, so it doesn't matter. After all, these two rankings are just some means and cannot be considered as strength. However, it's different if you are ranked first in your killing power. It means that in terms of the strongest attack power, you are stronger than him. That's why the Light King wants to challenge you, Tai Ta said softly. I understand. Jian Wushuang understood. Brother Heavenly Marquis, how about it? Do you want to compete? Underworld Emperor whispered, with the power of your strongest sword, you can crush Light King. Yes, I think so too. Tai Ta also nodded heavily. Di Hao and the people of the Temporal Temple also looked at Jian Wushuang. At this time, Jian Wushuang revealed a strange smile. Light King, it's not a problem for you to compete with me in the strongest power. However, it's meaningless to compete in this kind of competition. Why don't we add some stakes? Add stakes? Underworld Emperor and Tai Ta were both stunned. They had witnessed Jian Wushuang's terrifying sword move and thought that Jian Wushuang could win against Light King. Therefore, they supported Jian Wushuang's competition. However, they did not expect that Jian Wushuang was smarter than them. At the same time, he actually wanted to increase the stakes. This increase in stakes was a gamble. Light King, what do you think? Jian Wushuang looked at Light King with a smile. Interesting. Light King also smiled. Okay, let's increase the stakes. However, since our strength has reached our level, and we will soon enter the Bloodwave Temple and become Principal's Masters, ordinary things are useless. How about this? Many years ago, I obtained a reincarnation pearl from an invincible saint. I will now use this reincarnation pearl as the stakes for our competition. How about it? Samsara bead. Jian Wushuang was puzzled. He did not know what the Samsara bead was, but judging from its name, it must have something to do with the reincarnation principles. Heavenly Sword Marquis, I know that you have not only comprehended the space-time principles, but you have also studied the reincarnation principles. It's just that your comprehension of the reincarnation principles is far inferior to the space-time principles. This time, when you enter the Bloodwave Palace, you will become a Principal's Master with the space-time principles, but after becoming a Principal's Master, you will definitely find a way to master the second principles, which is naturally the reincarnation principle. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. The Samsara bead is the proof to enter the Samsara heaven domain. It is said that the samsara heaven domain is a cultivation holy land for comprehending the samsara principles. If you can enter it, it will be of great help to you in comprehending the samsara principles, said the Light King. Samsara heaven domain? Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up. I have heard of the samsara heaven domain. It is indeed very useful for cultivators who are comprehending the samsara principles, Tai Ta said. Hearing this, a smile appeared on Jian Wushuang's face. Visit Ria Del. Me for extra chapters. As the Light King had said, it was difficult for ordinary things to attract people with their strength. However, the certificate to enter the samsara heaven realm was very helpful to him. I've taken out my wager, but what do you use as your wager? The Light King looked at him. Light King, the samsara bead you took out is indeed useful to me, but I don't have any treasure that can help you a lot. Although it's not useful to you, I believe it's much more valuable than your samsara bead, Jian Wushuang said. Then he flipped his hand, and an azure lamp appeared in his hand. As soon as this azure lamp appeared, an ancient and majestic soul aura immediately spread out. Sensing this aura, many experts present were stunned. This is a supreme treasure. It's a soul attack supreme treasure, the one belonging to the 9 Temple Saints. The Underworld Emperor and Tai Ta recognized this azure lamp immediately. After all, they had fought with the 9 Temple Saints and forced her to use this supreme treasure. Soul attack treasure? When he saw the green lamp, Light King's eyes lit up, and he laughed heartily. Haha, Heavenly Sword Marquis, you are really generous. In terms of value, not to mention 1 reincarnation pearl, even 2 or 3 can't compare to the soul attack treasure in your hand. Using this soul attack treasure as a wager is obviously giving me an advantage. But I, Light King, am not a person who likes to take advantage of others. In this case, in addition to the reincarnation pearl, I will add 3 top-grade Holy Treasure protective armor and 1 top-grade Soul Defense Holy Treasure as a reward. Although the value is still not as valuable as your soul attack treasure, this is all I can offer. Okay. Jian Wushuang smiled and directly agreed. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3272. Crushing the betting was settled, and soon Jian Wushuang and Light King were ready to fight. Underworld Emperor, Di Hao, and the others immediately stepped aside to make way for an empty battlefield. The experts who were looking for opportunities around Bloodwave Temple noticed what was happening. What's going on? It seems like the Light King is going to fight with the Heavenly Sword Marquis. Yes, they are going to fight, and it was the Light King who took the initiative to go up. However, they shouldn't be fighting to see who is stronger. After all, the Light King is definitely the strongest. The reason they are fighting now should be because of the number 1 offensive power, the first place in attack power. Although the Light King was publicly acknowledged to be the strongest, the Heavenly Sword Marquis killed the 9 Temple Saints with 1 sword attack. Then, he was recognized as the first place in attack power by the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. Now, if the 2 of them were just fighting for the strongest power, the outcome would not be certain. In my opinion, the Light King will definitely win. After all, he has merged the 2 principles, and his strength is unfathomable. In terms of attack power, the power of the combination of the 2 principles is too strong. That's not necessarily true. You didn't see the scene where Heavenly Sword Marquis killed the 9 Temple Saints. Although the 9 Temple Saints has less than 50% of her divine power left, I dare say that the Light King is absolutely incapable of doing that. Many experts expressed their views on the fight between Jian Wushuang and the Light King. Some thought that the Light King's attack power was the strongest, but many also thought that Jian Wushuang's unique skill was the best. After all, even the ranking on the True Saint list said so. But who had the strongest attack power was about to be revealed. In the vast void, Jian Wushuang and the Light King were facing each other from a distance. Light King, you attack first. Jian Wushuang appeared very casual. Then I won't be polite. The Light King smiled faintly, and the cyan long stick on his back appeared in front of him. As he held the long stick in his right hand, in an instant, a dense wave of light and wind principles surged out. The power of these 2 great principles was incomparably dense. Clearly, the Light King's comprehension of these two principles had already reached the limit of a true saint. And the most terrifying thing was that after these two great principles surged out, they directly fused together at the fastest speed. When the new power emerged after the two principles merged, everyone present was filled with fear and gratitude. Among the many immortal saints in the divine beginning realm, only the Light King could merge the two principles. Heavenly Sword Marquis, what I'm going to use next is my most powerful move. I created it many years ago after merging the two principles. So far, I've only used this move 4 times. 3 times, I killed an invincible saint, and the last time, I killed 8 peak saints in one breath. Extermination. I named this move, Extermination. Light King stared at Jian Wushuang with sparkling eyes, and his leisurely voice spread throughout the surrounding area of Bloodwave Temple. Hearing his words, there was a commotion among the surrounding spectators. Extermination. Just from the name alone, it could be seen how terrifying this move would be. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. I'll wait and see. Jian Wushuang still smiled faintly, showing no signs of wanting to make a move. Heavenly Sword Marquis, be careful. Light King finally made his move. He held the cyan-colored long stick in both hands at the same time. The cyan-colored long stick, which was less than 2 meters long, suddenly expanded to 3 meters long, like a small mountain. On this small mountain, the principles of light and the principles of wind were perfectly combined, and a destructive power slowly condensed. One strike, extermination. The cyan staff in the hand of Light King finally smashed down. Boom. The world suddenly trembled, and the void seemed to be completely collapsed. The mighty cyan staff shadow, with a terrifying aura that shocked everyone present, directly smashed toward Jian Wushuang. At this moment, the entire world fell into a dead silence. Everyone stared at the cyan staff shadow with wide eyes. This Light King really hid his strength. Di Hao shouted in his heart. He had fought with Light King directly, but Light King had easily defeated him with the combined power of two principles. At that time, Light King did not use the combined power of two principles to perform his ultimate move. This strike is too powerful. A trace of shock appeared in the eyes of Underworld Emperor and Tai Ta. Visit Riadel. Me for extra chapters. While everyone was in a state of shock, under the cyan staff shadow, Jian Wushuang's face turned cold as he watched the cyan staff shadow smashing toward him. Heaven-cleaving skill. Buzz. Strong pressure from the life level directly burst out from Jian Wushuang's body. This pressure ignored the strength of both sides and the realm level. It was the pressure from the most fundamental life level. The most important thing was that this pressure could not be resisted. Light King's aura was overwhelming, and his eyes were shining. He was very confident in his most powerful strike. None of the immortal saints could resist this strike. That was why he wanted to compete with Jian Wushuang in terms of offensive power and even took the gamble. However, at this moment, the supreme life-level pressure from Jian Wushuang suddenly came into effect. Under this supreme pressure, the expression on Light King's face instantly froze. What is this? There was a trace of fear in Light King's eyes. Under this pressure, his consciousness seemed to have come to a halt. And what he had used was an earth-shaking strike. At this moment, the power of the strike was reduced by nearly half. Then, Jian Wushuang struck. He simply raised the Blood Mountain sword in his hand and struck out with it. In the eyes of everyone around him, his strike was very ordinary. However, when they were fighting for the 8th Bloodwave token, Underworld Emperor and Tai Ta had seen with their own eyes that Jian Wushuang had used such an ordinary strike to kill the 9 Temple Saintess, who had nearly 50% of her divine power. Now, the same sword move collided with Light King's cyan longstaff in an instant. Then, bang! With a deafening sound, the overwhelming power spread out crazily. In the middle of the battlefield, a cyan longstaff was thrown out, and Light King's body was shot out like a cannonball. Finally, it smashed into the formation light membrane surrounding Bloodwave Temple. The array light film, under the impact of the Light King, slightly trembled. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 3273, Bloodwave Temple opens _silence. The whole world was completely silent. Everyone's eyes were wide open as they stared at the scene in front of them in a daze. A huge wave rose in everyone's heart. Before Jian Wushuang and the Light King fought, many experts had already guessed that the collision of the strongest power would be very intense. They also knew that their strongest moves would be extremely terrifying. At the same time, many people also guessed that since Jian Wushuang was recognized by the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance as having the strongest attack power, he should be stronger than the Light King in the collision of the strongest power. However, no matter how they used their imagination to guess, they did not expect this scene. In a head-on confrontation, the power of both sides did not appear to be in a stalemate. Just a clash, the Light King's weapon was thrown out, and then the Light King was pushed back. Easily crush. This was definitely a crushing level. The difference in power between the two sides was too big. Not to mention the surrounding spectators, even the Light King himself was a little stunned. How did this happen? What was that suppressive force? The Light King frowned. He still remembered very clearly what he had felt in that moment just now. When that pressure came, it made him feel an unprecedented pressure and shock. The power of the most powerful move that he had displayed, in that instant, it reduced its power by at least 40%. If it had not been for the pressure, his most powerful move might not have been as powerful as Jian Wushuang's sword, but it would not have been so easily defeated. There was no room for him to fight back. The pressure just now was a bit like bloodline pressure, but there was a clear difference between it and bloodline pressure. It should be at the level of life. Light King narrowed his eyes and stared at Jian Wushuang. What kind of monster is Heavenly Sword Marquis? How could he have such a terrifying pressure? While Light King was puzzled, Jian Wushuang had already put away his Blood Mountain sword. A smile slowly appeared on his face as he said, "Light King, you lost." "Haha, Light King, are you convinced now?" Underworld Emperor and the others had already rushed over, and there was a strange smile on his face. Light King's face darkened, but then he smiled. "No wonder the true Saint List thinks that your attack power is number 1. The power of your sword just now has completely exceeded the level of the immortal saint. Heavenly Sword Marquis, in terms of attack power alone, you can indeed be ranked number 1. I, Light King, am willing to accept my defeat. Samsara Bead, as well as 3 top-grade Holy Treasure level protective armor and 1 Soul Defense top-grade Holy Treasure, they are all yours." Light King threw an interspatial ring at Jian Wushuang. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. Jian Wushuang took it and glanced at it with his consciousness. The smile on his face grew wider. "Light King, thank you." Light King nodded slightly and walked to the side. After Light King left, the surrounding void exploded. Countless experts were talking about the battle just now. Most of them were amazed by the power of Jian Wushuang's sword. Everyone was shocked by the power of the sword. Especially a few experts on the True Saint list. These experts on the True Saint list were strong, so they felt it even more. The moment Jian Wushuang used the sword, although they were outside the battlefield, they still felt a faint sense of death, which made them shudder. There was a rumor that if Jian Wushuang used his strongest trump card, he could kill experts on the True Saint list instantly. At first, I didn't believe the rumor, but now I believe it. Indeed, that sword move could kill an invincible saint easily. As for experts on the True Saint list, if their protective abilities were weaker, they could kill them instantly. This sword attack is too terrifying. I don't know how the Heavenly Sword Marquis mastered such a terrifying trump card. He is a monster. Many eyes could not help looking at Jian Wushuang. However, most of them were filled with fear and fear. At this moment, boom! The world suddenly shook. A faint ripple appeared on the light membrane of the formation that the Light King had crashed into. The light membrane of the formation began to gradually fade. Seeing this scene, many of the experts present were stunned. Visit Riadel. Me for extra chapters. The Bloodwave Palace is about to open. It's finally about to open. Many burning gazes turned toward the towering palace in the center. At this moment, the light membrane of the array that had been surrounding the palace had completely turned into nothingness. Naturally, the array had also dissipated. At the main entrance of the palace, the huge golden palace door had always been closed. However, a crack had suddenly appeared in the middle of the palace door. This crack was getting bigger and bigger. The ancient golden door slowly opened. Finally, the golden door completely opened, and the world once again calmed down. However, although the world returned to calm, the hearts of the many experts present could no longer calm down. The door of the Bloodwave Hall, which all the experts present yearned to enter, had opened. The Bloodwave Hall was the location of opportunities in the Bloodwave realm. After a long period of time, 99 out of 100 immortal saints who entered the Bloodwave Hall could directly become Principal's Masters. In other words, as long as the immortal saints present could enter the Bloodwave Temple, they would definitely become Principal's Masters. The only pity was that there were only 10 Bloodwave tokens to enter the Bloodwave Temple. The door of the Bloodwave Temple is wide open. Those of us who have obtained the Bloodwave tokens must enter through the door. For those experts who have not obtained the Bloodwave tokens, this is their last chance. Underworld Emperor looked around at the densely packed figures. He said in a low voice, "We're fine. There shouldn't be any blind people who will come to find trouble with us. However, the other 5 who didn't arrive in the beginning will not be able to enter Bloodwave Temple easily," Jian Wushuang said. Indeed. Now everyone's eyes are probably on those 5 people. As soon as they appear, the surrounding people will definitely swarm over, Taitar said. It doesn't matter whether they can enter the Bloodwave Palace successfully or not. Let's go in first, Di Hao said. You guys go in first. I'm not in a hurry. Jian Wushuang shook his head. Oh. Emperor Ming and Di Hao looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. I have some other things to do, Jian Wushuang explained. Emperor Ming and Di Hao looked at each other in dismay. Okay, be careful. After saying that, Emperor Ming and Di Hao flew directly into the Bloodwave Temple. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 3274, Cunning _ the doors of the Bloodwave Palace opened wide, and the countless experts present stared at the entrance of the palace with bloodshot eyes, eyeing it like a tiger eyeing its prey. Right at this moment, a human figure directly passed through the void and rushed toward the palace door. In an instant, countless gazes turned toward this human figure, but after seeing who it was, these people immediately chose to suppress the fanaticism in their hearts. After all, it was the Light King who intended to enter the Bloodwave Palace. Without any hindrance, the Light King directly entered the Bloodwave Palace. Then, the Holy Devil's son entered the Bloodwave Palace under everyone's gaze, followed by Emperor Ming and Di Hao. Since then, 4 out of the 5 experts who had the Bloodwave token had entered, except for Jian Wushuang. Brother Heavenly Marquis, why are you staying here instead of entering Bloodwave Temple with Underworld Emperor and the others? Taitar looked over. Of course, I have my reasons. Jian Wushuang did not explain too much. Outside Bloodwave Temple, after Underworld Emperor and Di Hao entered, no 5th expert with Bloodwave token entered for a short period of time. Although everyone present did not make any moves, everyone knew that the atmosphere was already tense. Suddenly, from the void beside them, a group of people erupted with astonishing speed and rushed toward the door of the Bloodwave Palace. The appearance of this group of people instantly caused the many experts present to become restless. They are from the Heavenly Ancestor Daoist sect. Master Ku is in the crowd. He wants to enter the Bloodwave Palace. Stop him. A series of explosive shouts suddenly resounded through the void. Countless powerful warriors moved. The Heavenly Ancestor Daoist sect was one of the 3 great freedom alliances of the Divine Beginning realm. Normally, the many powerful warriors present did not have the courage to provoke the core powerful warriors of the Heavenly Ancestor Daoist sect, much less snatch the treasures in their hands. However, in the Bloodwave realm, no one cared about the temptation of the opportunity to become the Principal's Master in the Bloodwave Palace. Right now, they only wanted to stop Master Ku before he entered the Bloodwave Palace. Then, they would snatch the Bloodwave token from his hand. Hong, 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 hong. Streams of tyrannical aura rose up in this void space. The many experts surrounding the Bloodwave Palace swarmed toward the Heavenly Ancestor Daoist sect from all directions at this moment. All sorts of techniques were directly displayed at this moment. It's really crazy. Qian Hongzi, Duan Lang, Yu Yu, and Fei Shui stood there and looked at the scene in front of them with fear. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. There were 2,000 experts on the field. At this moment, at least half of them were attacking the people of the Heavenly Ancestor Daoist sect. Facing so many experts, even the Light King would have to retreat. The people of the Heavenly Ancestor Daoist sect naturally encountered unprecedented trouble. Fortunately, although there are many experts attacking them, most of them are not united and their attacks are scattered. Otherwise, the few people from the Heavenly Ancestor Daoist sect would have been killed in just a few moves. Jian Wushuang looked at the scene in front of him with an indifferent expression. He did not have the slightest intention to attack. At this moment, Master Ku suddenly erupted. He swallowed a drop of divine power and instantly unleashed his terrifying strength, repelling the people around him. Then, he easily passed through the crowd and arrived at the door of Bloodwave Temple. Then, he entered the temple. Since Master Ku had already entered Bloodwave Temple, the people surrounding them had nothing to attract them, so they naturally stopped. Not bad. Master Ku is ranked 6th on the True Saint list, so he has some strength. Jian Wushuang nodded secretly. Not long after Master Ku entered the Bloodwave Temple, Snow Saint, who was ranked 10th on the True Saint list, also appeared. Snow Saint came from the Burning Heart Celestial Sect, one of the 8 great celestial sects. However, there were no other experts from the Burning Heart Celestial Sect around her. When the experts surrounded her, her figure became ghostly. Swish, 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 swish. Many white shadows moved through the crowd at such a fast speed that many people could not keep up with them, let alone her speed. What a terrifying movement technique! Jian Wushuang's pupils constricted. At the same time, he recalled the introduction of Saint Snow on the True Saint list. Saint Snow was extremely powerful. At the same time, her movement technique was widely recognized by many experts as the #1 immortal saint. Now, Jian Wushuang had finally witnessed it. Unlike his shadowless escape skill was an escape skill. It was mainly used to hide his tracks so that no one could detect him. As for his movement skill, it could be detected, but it was as useless as being unable to detect him. Using her #1 movement skill, Snow Saint easily passed through the crowd in front of her and soon arrived at the gate of Bloodwave Temple. What was interesting was that when the Snow Saint arrived at the gates of the Bloodwave Temple, there were still some people behind her with bloodshot eyes. Those who had gone mad still wanted to chase after her. Kill her. Among them, the black-robed skinny youth who was charging at the very front was the craziest. He roared and roared crazily like a wild beast because the Snow Saint had already entered the Bloodwave Temple. The others had already given up when they saw this, but he was still charging forward crazily. However, just as everyone was mocking the black-robed skinny youth, the black-robed skinny youth who was about to reach the entrance of the Bloodwave Hall suddenly sped up and entered the Bloodwave Hall. This scene shocked everyone. What's going on? Without the Bloodwave token, it's impossible to enter the Bloodwave Temple. But that person just now, most of them had not reacted and were still somewhat baffled. However, when Jian Wushuang saw this scene, the corners of his mouth curled up into a strange smile. So it's him. He's really cunning. Haha, this kid is really smart. Tai Ta, who was beside him, also laughed. The two of them already knew the identity of the black-robed skinny youth. As expected, that black-robed skinny youth was the mysterious invincible saint who had luckily obtained the 9th Bloodwave token. Although he had obtained the Bloodwave token, no one in the Bloodwave realm recognized him and did not know who he was. Therefore, he had just blended into the crowd and pretended to be like everyone else to crazily block and kill the Snow Saint. He even pretended to be incomparably crazy and charged forward like his consciousness had been completely occupied by greed. The people around him did not pay much attention to him. Then, he followed the Snow Saint to the entrance of the Bloodwave Hall, and easily entered the Bloodwave Hall. It had to be said that this person was indeed cunning. Chapter 3275. It wasn't her. After the black-robed skinny youth entered the Bloodwave Hall, the experts who had regained their senses immediately guessed his identity and began to curse loudly. Bastard! Damn it, that person just now was the invincible saint who received the 9th Bloodwave token. He actually played us? Fooled us? No, only an average invincible saint like him can successfully enter the Bloodwave Temple. Otherwise, he will die unless he hands over the Bloodwave token. We can only say that he is very smart. Now, 7 people have entered the Bloodwave Temple. Although the Heavenly Sword Marquis didn't enter, we can't get the Bloodwave token in his hand. In other words, there are only 2 chances left. One of these 2 Bloodwave tokens is on Han Xin of the Supreme Emotion Forgetting Valley, and the other one is on the Silver Snow King. These 2 people must not let them enter the Bloodwave Temple. All the experts present made up their minds. They had no choice. Their chances were running out. The people from the Supreme Emotion Forgetting Valley are here. A low roar suddenly reverberated between the heaven and earth. In an instant, the eyes of the experts who were still eager for the Bloodwave token turned scarlet again. Jian Wushuang also looked over from the void not far away. His hands could not help clenching into fists. There, 5 figures were rushing over. All 5 of them wore white robes and were women. 4 of the 5 women revealed their faces, but the one in the middle was covered by a veil. Although the face could not be seen clearly with the veil, the beautiful eyes and figure alone were enough to make everyone's heart flutter. Without a doubt, this woman's beauty was extraordinary. She might not be as beautiful as the dead 9 Temples Saintess, but she was definitely not far off. Looking at the veiled woman in the center, Jian Wushuang's fanatical heart was instantly doused with a basin of cold water. It cooled down, and his tightly clenched fist slowly loosened. It's not her. Jian Wushuang shook his head with a trace of disappointment in his eyes. From the very beginning, when he learned of Han Xin's name on the True Saint list and that she came from the Supreme Emotion Forgetting Valley, he had been looking forward to it because he felt that this Han Xin was most likely his wife, Lang Rushuang. After all, Han Xin was not famous before. It was as if she had appeared out of nowhere, but she was very strong and had an extremely cold temperament. These characteristics were very similar to his wife. Han Xin had obtained a Bloodwave token, so she would definitely enter the Bloodwave Temple. Because of this, he did not choose to enter the Bloodwave Temple with Emperor Ming and Di Hao immediately. Instead, he stayed here and waited. He had waited for Han Xin to appear and then wanted to see if she was really his wife. But in the end, he was disappointed. Although the veiled woman in front of him was still veiled and his face could not be seen clearly, and her temperament was also extremely cold, Jian Wushuang could tell at a glance that she was not his wife. The difference between the two was too great. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Jian Wushuang sighed heavily in his heart. After a long while, he raised his head again, but a trace of determination flashed in his eyes. Although Han Xin is not Shuang-Er, she is after all a genius disciple of the Supreme Emotion Forgetting Valley. If I want to reunite with Shuang-Er in the future, I will have to deal with the Supreme Emotion Forgetting Valley. If I can help Han Xin now, it can be considered as a favor to the Supreme Emotion Forgetting Valley. In the future, it will be much easier to deal with her. Thinking of this, Jian Wushuang did not hesitate any longer. He immediately used the shadowless escape technique and rushed toward Han Xin. Han Xin and the other 4 people from the Supreme Emotion Forgetting Valley had long known that they would be blocked by many experts when they entered the Bloodwave Temple. Therefore, they were prepared. They immediately formed a defensive formation. This defensive formation was of a very high level. In addition to the 5 people who were driving the formation, including Han Xin, who had swallowed a drop of divine power, their strength had soared. Even if they were surrounded by many experts, this array could barely hold on. Meanwhile, the 5 of them were relying on the array to fend off the attacks from all directions while continuously approaching the Bloodwave Hall's door. Soon, we're almost at the door of the hall. As the 5 of them got closer and closer to the door of the Bloodwave Hall, a trace of joy rose in the hearts of the 5 people. However, at this moment, a sudden change occurred. You want to rely on this defensive array to forcefully walk to the door of the Bloodwave Palace? How can it be so easy? A fierce shout suddenly sounded on the battlefield. Everyone, they are using the indestructible true martial array. This array's defensive power is extremely strong. Regardless of whether we attack separately or concentrate our power to attack a single point, it will be very difficult for us to break this array. However, every array has a weakness. The weakness of this indestructible true martial array is in Zegan's position. Everyone, listen to my instructions and attack this point together. The one who shouted was a purple-robed old man. When the surrounding people saw this purple-robed old man, their hearts calmed down. Oh no, it's Elder Ghost Heaven Sorcerer. The expressions of the 5 people from the Supreme Emotion Forgetting Valley changed. Elder Ghost Heaven Sorcerer was just a carefree invincible saint. In terms of strength, he was not much, but he was very famous in the Divine Beginning realm. That was because he had a very high level of research on formations, especially, he had a very high level of research on some strange formations. For example, the Eternal True Martial formation that the 5 people of the Supreme Emotion Forgetting Valley had used was an extremely strange and rare defensive formation in the Divine Beginning realm. This formation was very hard to recognize, and there were so many powerful people here. There were also many people who had studied formations. However, since the appearance of the 5 people of the Supreme Emotion Forgetting Valley, no one had seen through this formation. However, this Elder Ghost Heaven Sorcerer was able to see through this formation now. If someone were to see through this formation and find its weakness, then the power of this formation would be greatly reduced. As expected, under the guidance of the Elder Ghost Heaven Sorcerer, many experts attacked consecutively. In just 2 or 3 attacks, they had directly destroyed the indestructible True Force formation. When the formation collapsed, the 5 people from Supreme Emotion Forgetting Valley immediately appeared in front of the many experts present. With the Bloodwave token, Han Xin did not have the tyrannical strength of Master Ku, nor did she have the terrifying movement technique of the Snow Saint. Under the encirclement of so many experts, they instantly fell into a crisis. However, at this moment, a figure appeared in the middle of the battlefield. His appearance immediately attracted the attention of many strong people present. Chapter 3276, Summon Heavenly Sword Marquis. It's Heavenly Sword Marquis. Why is he here at this time? Heavenly Sword Marquis, we are not interested in the Bloodwave token in your hand. I hope you won't hinder us. Many experts looked at Jian Wushuang, and some even warned him. Haha, I'm just trying to get in your way, so what can you do? Jian Wushuang sneered. He swayed in the crowd and did not attack the surrounding experts. However, those experts who were crazily surrounding and killing Han Xin did not dare to provoke him. Jian Wushuang easily came to the center of the battlefield and came to Han Xin's side. Grab me. Jian Wushuang stretched out his arm. Huh. Han Xin looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. However, since she was in a critical situation, she did not have time to think about it. She immediately grabbed Jian Wushuang's arm and whoosh. Jian Wushuang and Han Xin disappeared into the crowd. When they reappeared, they had already arrived at the entrance of Bloodwave Temple. Time-space teleportation. This move could not only teleport from a long distance but also move at a close distance. Now, Jian Wushuang used time-space teleportation and brought Han Xin to the entrance of Bloodwave Temple. Then, they immediately rushed into Bloodwave Temple. Seeing Jian Wushuang and Han Xin enter Bloodwave Temple, many experts present were extremely angry. Bastards, they escaped. We had a chance to kill Han Xin and get the Bloodwave token from her because of Heavenly Sword Marquis. Damn Heavenly Sword Marquis, he entered the Bloodwave Temple by himself, but he helped others to enter the Bloodwave Temple. Those experts who did not get the Bloodwave token were cursing Jian Wushuang, but now that it was a foregone conclusion, there was nothing they could do. Around them, Tai Ta, Chen Hongzi, and the others had strange expressions when they saw this scene. Did the Heavenly Sword Marquis stay here to help Han Xin enter the Bloodwave Temple? Tai Ta stroked his chin. It seems so, But when did the Heavenly Sword Marquis become friends with the people of the Supreme Emotion-Forgetting Valley? I've never heard of them. Qian Hongzi, Duan Lang, and the others were also puzzled, but they did not think too much about it. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. After Jian Wushuang and Han Xin entered the hall, they came directly to a magnificent hall. After entering the hall, there were no pursuers behind them. Han Xin immediately looked at Jian Wushuang. Heavenly Sword Marquis, why are you helping me? Han Xin asked in puzzlement. She asked herself if it was the first time she met Jian Wushuang, so they did not have any friendship. And she had never heard of the relationship between the Supreme Emotion-Forgetting Valley and Jian Wushuang. I helped you because of someone in the valley, Jian Wushuang said. Who? Han Xin asked. Her surname is Lung. She should have entered the valley hundreds of years ago, and her position in the valley should be very special, Jian Wushuang said. His wife, Lung Rushuang, was suitable to cultivate the supreme divine skill of the valley. Even the old valley master of the valley valued her very much. After she entered the valley, her position was certainly extraordinary. After hearing Jian Wushuang's words, Han Xin's expression under the veil changed. Obviously, she knew who the person Jian Wushuang was talking about was. Han Xin, you should know who I'm talking about, right? Jian Wushuang stared at Han Xin. I don't know. Han Xin shook her head directly. In the past 1,000 years, many disciples have entered Supreme Emotion-Forgetting Valley. I don't know all of them. As for the person whose surname is Leng, I have never paid attention to him. You don't know? Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. He could tell that Han Xin was lying at a glance. However, Han Xin clearly did not intend to continue this topic with him. Heavenly Sword Marquis, you have indeed helped me a lot this time. I will remember this favor. I will repay you when I have the chance in the future, Han Xin said. Jian Wushuang looked around and hesitated for a moment. He did not continue asking but looked at the front of the hall. The grand hall was quite simple and crude. There were no exquisite and brilliant decorations. In front of the hall, there were 2 passages leading to the inner layer. 2 passages? Jian Wushuang frowned. Someone from the Supreme Emotion-Forgetting Valley came to the Bloodwave Palace with the Bloodwave token, but they left a message that there was only 1 passage in the Bloodwave Temple. But now, why are there 2 passages? Is it because we entered the Bloodwave Temple at the same time? Han Xin was puzzled. It's possible. Jian Wushuang smiled and said, Han Xin, since there are 2 passages, you and I can choose one to enter. You choose first. I'll take this one. Han Xin did not stand on ceremony and directly chose the passage on the right. Then I'll take this one. Good luck. Jian Wushuang said. His body flashed and he directly rushed toward the left passage. The dark and long passage was bottomless. Jian Wushuang carefully moved forward, but his mind was still full of thoughts. Han Xin clearly knows who I'm talking about, but she insists that she doesn't know. Why? Is it because she doesn't want the outside world to know about Shuang-Er, or is it because Shuang-Er has started to cultivate that divine skill and the Supreme Emotion-Forgetting Valley wants her to cut off all ties with the outside world? Jian Wushuang frowned. Although he did not get anything out of Han Xin's conversation, Jian Wushuang felt a little uneasy. He felt that he could not delay the matter of Shuang-Er any longer. Once the matter of the Bloodwave realm was settled and he had successfully broken through to the Principal's Master realm, he would immediately set off for the second heaven. If I can really become the Principal's Master, I can at least be treated seriously by the Supreme Emotion-Forgetting Valley, Jian Wushuang muttered. But at this moment, a long voice slowly came from the end of the passage. Little guy, come here. Come to me. The voice seemed to contain special magic power. It came from the tunnel in front of him, but it sounded in Jian Wushuang's heart and echoed in his mind again and again. Come here. Come here. The voice sounded again and again, and at the same time, an unprecedented summoning power came. Although Jian Wushuang had been vigilant, as the voice sounded again and again, his consciousness gradually sank down. His eyes gradually became listless. At this moment, his consciousness had been completely sealed, like a walking corpse. With the guidance of the voice, he moved forward numbly. Chapter 3277, Divine Palace of Life ___. After an unknown period of time, Jian Wushuang finally regained consciousness. Once he regained consciousness, he immediately understood his situation. His face suddenly changed, and his back was instantly drenched in cold sweat. He was very clear that his previous state was completely at the mercy of others. What's going on? Jian Wushuang immediately looked around and found that he had come to a dark void where there was no light at all, even his vision was blocked. Even so, Jian Wushuang still saw a dark figure not far in front of him. Who are you? Jian Wushuang stared at the dark figure. His intuition told him that his muddlehead state was likely caused by this dark figure. You are now in Bloodwave Temple, but I can easily bring you here. Who do you think I am? The dark figure said slowly in the dark void. You are the master of the Bloodwave Temple? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Yes, but it's just a consciousness. The dark figure said. Jian Wushuang was not surprised. He could feel that the figure in front of him did not have any life aura. It was indeed a consciousness. Let me introduce myself. My name is Bloodwave, and I come from the Life Palace, the dark figure said. Life Palace? Is it a sect or force that specializes in comprehending the principles of life? Jian Wushuang frowned. He had never heard of a force or sect called the Life Palace in the Divine Beginning realm. However, the Bloodwave realm could not even be touched by the 3 Saint realms and the 3 Freedom Alliances. It could even block the will of the Heavenly Tao. It was evident that the strength of the master of the Bloodwave Temple was extraordinary. To be able to produce such an expert in the Life Palace, he must be extraordinary. Jian Wushuang, greetings, Elder Bloodwave. Jian Wushuang immediately bowed to show his respect. Jian Wushuang? Aren't you called Heavenly Sword Marquis? Bloodwave asked playfully. Senior, you know my name? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Of course, I created the Bloodwave realm. I know what happened here. Of course, my consciousness is in a deep sleep all year round. Under normal circumstances, it would not be awakened, let alone pay attention to the things in the Bloodwave realm. But this time, I was alarmed because of you. Bloodwave gave Jian Wushuang a deep look. Little guy, it's your perfect life level that has alarmed me. Perfect life level? Jian Wushuang's expression suddenly changed. He was a perfect chaotic creature, which was his biggest secret. Although he had used the heaven-cleaving skill in the Bloodwave realm and revealed the life pressure of a perfect chaotic creature, he had never expected that his display would alarm Bloodwave, who had been sleeping all this time. Moreover, Bloodwave had directly seen that he had a perfect life level. One must know that there was no specific concept of a life level in the Divine Beginning realm. An ordinary life was an ordinary life, and a special life was a special life. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. As for the word perfect, it was named by his master Shen Yi. Senior Bloodwave, how do you know the level of a perfect life form and recognize it at a glance? Jian Wushuang asked. It's simple. I've seen a cultivator at the level of a perfect life form, Bloodwave said. You've seen my master? Jian Wushuang's heart skipped a beat. He knew that his master was the only one who had a perfect chaotic life form in the Divine Beginning realm. Now that Bloodwave had said that he had met a cultivator with a perfect life level, he subconsciously thought that it was his master, so he blurted it out. Your master? What's his name? Bloodwave asked. His name is Shen Yi, Jian Wushuang answered immediately. Shen Yi? I've never heard of him. Bloodwave shook his head. How is that possible? Have you met other perfect chaotic creatures, Elder Bloodwave? Jian Wushuang asked in surprise. Haha, little guy, it seems that your horizons are still a little low, but it's normal. After all, you're only a saint. You're not qualified to touch the secrets of this world, let alone the secrets of the entire universe, Bloodwave said with a smile. The universe? Is it the universe battlefield? Jian Wushuang asked. Visit Riadel. Me for extra chapters. The universe battlefield? Sort of. Bloodwave continued to smile. Let me put it this way. A cultivator at the level of perfect life, which is a perfect chaotic creature, is very rare. In your current world, it is absolutely unique. However, if it is in the vast universe, it may not be the case. At least, I have seen other perfect chaotic creatures, and there is more than one. Jian Wushuang was shocked. Universe battlefield. It was said that the universe battlefield was extremely mysterious and had unlimited possibilities. He had always thought that the universe battlefield was just an opportunity, but now it seemed that it was not so. In the vast universe battlefield, there seemed to be other cultivators besides the divine beginning realm, and there were even other perfect chaotic creatures. Senior Bloodwave, is the life palace that you mentioned also a force in the universe battlefield? Jian Wushuang asked. Yes. Bloodwave nodded. The life palace is the most mysterious and terrifying force in the universe. It has a special feature, which is that it is only open to special life forms. In other words, only special life forms born in the universe are qualified to join the life palace. Only special life forms are qualified to join. Jian Wushuang's pupils constricted. He knew very well how rare and powerful special life forms were. In the divine beginning realm, there were indeed too few special life forms. So far, Jian Wushuang had only met two special life forms. One was the Saint Devil Son, and the other was someone he had met before, Xiong Dao from the divine ancestor Daoist sect. These two special life forms had a huge innate advantage. Saint Devil Son, for example, was only ranked in the top 10 on the true saint list due to his simple comprehension of the principles. He did not have many unique skills and secret skills, but because of the huge innate advantage of the special life forms, he could even compete with Light King, and that was why he was ranked second on the true saint list. Jian Wushuang thought it was terrifying to see a force that only special life forms were qualified to join, and all the experts under its command were special life forms. Senior Bloodwave, I'm very curious. How many people are in the life palace? Jian Wushuang could not help asking. Many. I don't know exactly how many, but it's definitely beyond your imagination. In addition, I just said that only special life forms are qualified to enter the life palace, and I'm not talking about ordinary initial level special life forms, Bloodwave said. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 3278. Added. It's not an ordinary initial level special life form? What do you mean? Are there different levels among the special life forms? Jian Wushuang asked. Of course, there are differences among the special life forms. Just like bloodline groups, there are weaker and lower level bloodline groups, and there are also extremely powerful bloodline groups standing at the top. Bloodwave smiled faintly. There are several levels of special life forms. First of all, the most common and easier to see in the universe are the initial level special life forms. Compared to ordinary cultivators, these special life forms have obvious innate advantages, but their potential is actually similar to that of ordinary human cultivators. If you want to reach the peak, you still have to work hard and take risks to have a chance. Most initial level special life forms are born within the Tao world and are born within the Tao world. However, above the initial level, there are universe level special life forms. Special life forms at this level may not be stronger than initial level special life forms, but they have greater potential. This is because universe level special life forms are born within the vast universe. There is still a huge difference between the two. Above the universe level, there are special life forms in the creation level. Special life forms at this level have huge innate advantages and extremely high talent. Of course, their potential is much higher than the first two special life forms. In the universe, ordinary special life forms in the creation level can reach the level of universe overlords as long as they don't die halfway. Bloodwave was talking slowly. However, Jian Wushuang, who was listening in front of him, was a little stunned. Initial level, universe level, creation level, Tao realm, universe overlord. These words completely exceeded Jian Wushuang's understanding of heaven and earth, making him feel as if he had entered a completely new level. Above the creation level is the final perfect level. Bloodwave spoke again. His expression became solemn. A perfect level life form is an almost extinct existence in the vast universe. It is possible to have one life form after countless chaos cycles. Such a life form not only controls the supreme life level pressure and makes countless life forms submit to it, but most importantly, it has unlimited possibilities. Infinite possibilities? Jian Wushuang's pupils constricted. He did not know what infinite possibilities Bloodwave was referring to, but for Bloodwave to have such a high evaluation of him, it was clear that the level of a perfect life form was extraordinary. And he was the owner of a perfect life form. A perfect chaotic life form is indeed a special existence that countless experts admire. However, because its life form is too high, it makes it difficult for the heavenly Tao, so there are a lot of restrictions and suppression. I think you must have experienced such suppression. Bloodwave looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's face darkened. Of course, he had experienced the suppression from the heavenly Tao. In Jian Wushuang's opinion, it was not just suppression. The power of the heavenly Tao was clearly trying to kill him at all costs. He had long known that the perfect chaotic creature was repelled by the heavenly Tao's will. In fact, not only perfect level creatures, but also special creatures in the creation, universe, or even the initial level. They are more or less restricted and suppressed. This is a trade-off between the heavenly Tao's will and the special creatures and ordinary cultivators. And since there is suppression, there will naturally be resistance. Therefore, the Life Palace, which is made up of special life forms, was born. The Life Palace exists to fight against the heavenly will, Bloodwave said. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang's heart was in turmoil. Now he finally understood why so many special life forms joined the Life Palace. It turned out that the purpose of the Life Palace was to fight against the heavenly will, to resist the suppression of the heavenly will on the special life forms. The special life forms were not willing to be suppressed by the will of the heavenly Tao, so they would naturally resist. However, they would choose to join the Life Palace because of the influence of one person's strength. Little guy, now you know why I was awakened by you, right? Bloodwave looked at Jian Wushuang again. There are very few perfect life forms in the Life Palace where special life forms gather. Since I can meet one, I won't miss it. Visit Ria Del. Me for extra chapters. Jian Wushuang, as the Chief Supreme of the Divine Life Palace, am asking you, would you like to join my Divine Palace of Life? The sudden invitation startled Jian Wushuang. His eyes flickered, but then a smile appeared on his face. I'd like to. Of course, Jian Wushuang could not find any reason to refuse. After all, he had been hunted by the will of heaven all year round. Now that he finally found out that there was a divine palace of life, which was formed by many special life forms to resist the pressure of the will of heaven, he naturally wanted to join it. Haha, very good. From today on, you are a member of my Life Palace. Bloodwave smiled, then waved his hand and handed an interspatial ring to Jian Wushuang. There are 3 tokens in this interspatial ring. One is a token for a member of the Life Palace. After you refine it, it will leave a special mark in your body. In the future, if you meet another member of the Life Palace, you can sense it through this mark. Of course, the other party can also sense your identity. The second token is my communication token. You are still in this Tao realm, so you don't need to contact me for the time being. But when you leave the Tao realm and go to the depths of the vast universe, you can use this token to contact me. I will tell you how to go to the Life Palace. As for the last token, it records a unique magic power of the Life Palace. This magic power is named after life. All members of the Life Palace can cultivate this magic power. At this point, Bloodwave paused for a moment. Life Divine Power? Jian Wushuang frowned slightly. Elder Bloodwave, what is the use of this divine power? The Life Divine Power was created by the founder of the Life Palace after studying the essence blood of countless special lives for a long time. This secret skill can maximize the potential and innate advantage of special lives. To put it simply, the innate advantages and potential of a special life form, especially universe-level and creation-level special life forms, are much greater than that of ordinary cultivators. However, most of these innate advantages are only simple and crude. To a large extent, they are reflected in the power of divine power. However, in reality, the innate advantages they use are only 10%. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 3279, Divine Power of Life _10%? Jian Wushuang was stunned. In the divine beginning realm, the innate advantage of the special life forms was very shocking. It was almost difficult to make up for the innate advantage, but Bloodwave told him that the special life forms had only used 10% of their innate advantage. Don't be surprised. To be called special life forms, each of them is extraordinary, not something ordinary cultivators or some bloodlines can compare with. Without any guidance, it's already good enough to be able to use 10% of their innate advantage. And the life divine ability created by the founder of the Life Palace can let these special life forms use their innate advantage as much as possible. For ordinary special life forms, as long as they cultivate this life divine power, they can at least exert 20 to 30% of their innate advantage. If they cultivate the life divine power to the extreme, they may even exert 60 to 70% of their innate advantage. Bloodwave said. Even if they cultivate it to the extreme, they can only exert 60 to 70% of their innate advantage. Can't they fully exert their innate advantage? Jian Wushuang asked in puzzlement. No. Bloodwave shook his head. Perhaps someone will be able to perfectly utilize the innate advantage of a special life form in the future, but so far, no one has been able to do so. The founder of the Divine Life Palace is extremely talented and has spent so much time, yet he has only been able to do so much. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang was secretly amazed. By the way, the move you performed when you displayed your perfect life level in the Bloodwave realm seems to be extraordinary. Bloodwave looked at Jian Wushuang. If I'm not wrong, did you integrate your supreme life level pressure into your swordsmanship? Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded. But I didn't create that move. If it was my master. Your master has also a perfect chaos creature. Bloodwave looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. Yes, but unfortunately, my master has died, Jian Wushuang said. Is that so? That's really a pity, Bloodwave sighed. It's incredible that a perfect chaotic creature who hasn't joined the Life Palace can combine the supreme power of his perfect life with his moves and exploit his innate advantage as much as he can. Judging from your previous sword move, you have already exerted a little more than 10% of your innate advantage. If I'm not wrong, this shouldn't be the limit of that move. Yes, the most powerful divine power that Master created is called Heaven-Cleaving Skill. Although I've been studying it, I'm still too weak. I can only use part of the power of that move. It's still far from the ultimate power of that move. Yes. Jian Wushuang said. That's it. If I'm not wrong, the ultimate power of this move created by your master should allow you to exert 30% of your innate advantage. The key point is that he used an offensive divine power, while the life divine power is a special application method. The two might not conflict, Bloodwave muttered. No conflict. Jian Wushuang's expression changed. In other words, it was possible for him to use the heaven-cleaving skill as well as the life divine power. If he cultivated both the life divine power and the heaven-cleaving skill to the limit and used the life divine power to exert 60% or even 70% of his innate advantage, and then used the heaven-cleaving skill to exert about 30% of his innate advantage, did that not mean, would it be possible for him to fully exert the innate advantage of his perfect life? Theoretically, it is possible. As for the result, you can only try it after you have mastered the life divine power, Bloodwave said. I will try it now. Jian Wushuang was obviously impatient. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. Don't worry. Bloodwave waved his hand. You'll have plenty of time to cultivate the life divine power in the future, but you'd better not waste your time now. Don't forget that you're in the Bloodwave Temple now. You came here for the opportunity in the Bloodwave Temple. I used some means to lure you here, but no one else knows about it. But if you waste your time here for a few days, others will surely guess that you have some special encounters in the Bloodwave Temple, and you'll have a lot of trouble later. So you'd better stay with them now. Jian Wushuang was stunned, and then he smiled. Indeed, he had enough trouble, and the three Saint Realms had their eyes on him. If people knew that he had a special encounter in the Bloodwave Temple at this time, there would be more people targeting him. It was better to save these unnecessary troubles. I've told you what I should tell you. As a member of the Life Palace, I hope you can grow up as soon as possible. After all, a special life form of the perfect level can grow to a certain level, which is very terrifying. It's also a great battle strength for the Life Palace. Go. Go. Bloodwave waved his hand, and a space passage immediately appeared in the dark void. Visit Riadel. Me for extra chapters. Goodbye, Senior. Jian Wushuang bowed respectfully to Bloodwave, then he plunged into the space passage and disappeared. The dark void calmed down again. Bloodwave, who was shrouded in darkness, looked at the space passage that Jian Wushuang slowly closed, and his eyes flashed with a strange luster. Someone actually developed the innate advantage of a special life form through an ultimate attack. Even the founder of the Life Palace couldn't do this. What kind of person is Jian Wushuang's master? Xianyi, this name seems familiar. Who is he? With doubt, the dark figure gradually quieted down. In the deepest part of the Bloodwave Temple, a huge golden palace door was tightly closed. In the open space in front of the golden palace door, there were a few 8 figures. These 8 people were the first to enter the Bloodwave Temple, including Han Xin, who had just entered the Bloodwave Temple with Jian Wushuang. At this time, they came from a passage behind. Jian Wushuang's figure also came over. Haha, brother Heavenly Marquis, you finally came in. Upon seeing Jian Wushuang, Emperor Ming immediately greeted him with a smile. Di Hao also nodded to Jian Wushuang. Heavenly Sword Marquis, you seem to be a little slow. Han Xin glanced at Jian Wushuang. I'm not as anxious as you, Jian Wushuang replied with a smile. Han Xin's eyes flickered, but she did not suspect anything. Everyone thought that Jian Wushuang had just entered the Bloodwave Temple normally, but they did not know that he had just gone to the Dark Void and met the master of the Bloodwave Temple. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 3280, Greystar __ time passed, and soon, the last person to enter the Bloodwave Temple arrived. Jian Wushuang and the others thought that the last person to enter the Bloodwave Temple would be Silver Snow King, who had obtained the Bloodwave token. However, when this person came to the open space, everyone was shocked. Silver Wolf. It's you. The Bloodwave token in Silver Snow King's hand fell into your hands. Everyone looked at the last person to arrive. This person was Silver Wolf, one of the 3 Saint Realms, the strongest expert in the Life and Death Saint Realm, and ranked 7th on the True Saint list. Silver Wolf, what about Silver Snow King? Underworld Emperor glanced at Silver Wolf. He's dead. Silver Wolf's face was a bit gloomy. He was a solitary expert. He tried to break into the Bloodwave Hall by himself but was surrounded by many experts. In the end, he was killed. As for him, he was still alive. Many experts in the outside world began to fight over the Bloodwave token he left behind. My luck was clearly better. That Bloodwave token fell into my hands. Oh! Underworld Emperor and the others were relieved. Indeed, many experts in the outside world were eyeing the Bloodwave token. Except for Light King and the others, who were unrestrained in the beginning, they were also stopped by many experts in the process of entering the Bloodwave Temple. They almost could not enter the Bloodwave Temple. For example, Han Xin, if Jian Wushuang did not help her, her result would not be much better than that of Silver Snow King. Silver Wolf, when the Snow Saint and Han Xin entered the Bloodwave Temple, none of the 3 Saint Realms showed up. But when Han Xin and I entered the Bloodwave Temple, you showed up. Jian Wushuang looked at Silver Wolf coldly, his words were full of mockery. Humph, to fight for the Bloodwave token in front of you is courting death. The three Saint Realms are not that stupid. Silver Wolf snorted. The three Saint Realms did wait for Jian Wushuang to enter the Bloodwave temple before fighting for it. If Jian Wushuang was there, they would not dare to fight. After all, Jian Wushuang's previous slaughter had scared them, especially after he killed the 9 Temple Saints, which made experts like Silver Wolf, Thunder God, and Jiyu Zhenzi, who ranked high on the true saint list, afraid to appear in front of Jian Wushuang. They did not dare to appear in front of Jian Wushuang. Haha, Silver Wolf, you are indeed smart, but you are in front of me now. Aren't you worried that I will kill you directly here? Jian Wushuang stared at Silver Wolf with a wicked smile. Silver Wolf's heart trembled, but he said seriously, "This is the Bloodwave Temple. How dare you attack me? Do you think the rules of the Bloodwave Temple are just for show?" Bloodwave Temple was a lucky place in the Bloodwave realm, where fighting was forbidden. In the history of the Divine Beginning realm, it was not that no one had attacked in the Bloodwave Temple, but the first person to do so was directly killed by a mysterious force, and no one dared to attack in the Bloodwave Temple anymore. Silver Wolf knew this, so he was fearless at this moment. Hearing Silver Wolf's words, the smile on Jian Wushuang's face grew wider. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Others might be afraid of the rules in Bloodwave Temple, but to him, the rules were not binding. After all, the master of Bloodwave Temple was definitely on his side. Even if he killed Silver Wolf now, he was sure that Bloodwave would not attack him. But if he really did that, it would expose the extraordinary relationship between him and the master of Bloodwave Temple. Forget it, I'll let him live for a while. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly and looked away. Seeing this, Silver Wolf thought that Jian Wushuang did not have the courage to attack him in Bloodwave Temple. He could not help but look proud. At this moment, the huge temple shook slightly. Then, in front of everyone, the tightly shut golden gate slowly rose up. A deep and mysterious passage appeared in front of everyone. It's here. The opportunity to become Principal's master is inside. Haha, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and enter. No one hesitated. Immediately, the 10 figures on the empty ground rushed into the mysterious tunnel. When they walked out of the mysterious tunnel, they discovered that they had arrived in a gorgeous galaxy. This galaxy was gorgeous and beautiful. There were countless stars in it. At a glance, it was intoxicating. In the center of this galaxy, there was a huge, boundless gray star floating quietly. This gray star was the absolute core of this galaxy. It was surrounded by endless gray air currents. It was flowing endlessly. From this gray star, a total of 10 gray light beams extended out. At the end of these 10 gray light beams, there was each a floating high platform. The high platform was not big, but it was enough for one person to use it to their heart's content. That gray star is the opportunity we are looking for. The Underworld Emperor raised his head and looked at the gray star in front of him with a face full of yearning. The ancestors of our supreme emotion-forgetting valley said that this gray star is very magical. The 10 light beams from its body are the connection point between us and the gray star. There are 10 high platforms under the 10 light beams, so we can each have one, Han Xin said. Let's go. Jian Wushuang and the others rushed toward the gray star. None of them chose a high platform and immediately sat down on the high platform. Jian Wushuang was also sitting cross-legged on one of the high platforms. The gray light beam connected to the high platform instantly shone on his body. At this moment, Jian Wushuang finally saw the huge gray star in front of him. At first, he thought it was a star, but now, through the guidance of the gray light beam, he realized that it was not a star, but a light ball formed by the fusion of various powers. The power in the light ball had formed a complete cycle, forming an eternity, which made the power extremely calm. That was why the light ball looked like a star. The power that formed the light ball was the power of principles. Yes, it was the principles master, but it was not just one or two principles, but a dense amount of the power of principles. Space-time principles, reincarnation principles, destruction principles, life and death principles, darkness principles, light principles, Thunder principles. Everything Jian Wushuang knew about the principles, the light ball had everything. These principles were obviously different, but they were perfectly integrated in the light ball. Chapter 3281. Complete Heavenly Tao. Incredible, simply incredible. Jian Wushuang carefully felt the composition of the light ball, but his heart was already in turmoil. Different rules contained unique characteristics, and it was almost difficult to coexist. For example, in the divine beginning realm, it was very difficult for many cultivators to combine the two principles. This could be seen from the countless immortal saints, including the Light King, who had combined the two principles. However, this light ball did not only fuse the two principles, but it also perfectly fused all the principles in the world and formed an eternal state. What was this eternal light ball? Heavenly Tao. If I'm not wrong, this light ball is a complete heavenly Tao. Jian Wushuang's heart trembled. He had long known that the heavenly Tao was formed by the fusion of countless principles and mysteries. It was clearly the same as the light ball in front of him. This is the great opportunity in Bloodwave Temple. Each and every one of the complete eternal heavenly Tao is in front of us. Jian Wushuang was a little confused. He did not expect to see a complete heavenly Tao here. Moreover, he could clearly see the composition of the heavenly Tao. Most importantly, each and every branch of the complete eternal heavenly Tao was formed. Every single principle was placed before him in an incomparably complete and clear manner. Take the space-time principles that he had comprehended, for example. Right now, he could directly see the essence of the space-time principles through the complete heavenly Tao in front of him. The vast and majestic space-time principles, it was as if the outermost layer of his mysterious clothes had been stripped off, completely exposing himself in front of him. With a thought, he had many doubts about the space-time principles in the past, but almost instantly, he had an epiphany. I understand now. No wonder any immortal saint who enters the Bloodwave Temple can become a principles master after leaving the Bloodwave Temple. Jian Wushuang secretly praised. He could feel that it was too easy for him to comprehend the space-time principles through the complete heavenly Tao on this high platform. It was like eating and drinking water. His comprehension of the space-time principles was already extremely high. In such a state, he believed that it would only take him 10 days at most to completely master the remaining space-time principles. Once he completely comprehended and mastered the principles, he would have reached the threshold of becoming a principles master. Every time the Bloodwave Temple opens, the cultivators who enter with the Bloodwave token can stay there for a whole month. 1 month. Jian Wushuang could not help smiling. After all, everyone who entered the Bloodwave realm was an expert. The weakest one was almost a peak saint. They had abundant divine power and high comprehension of the principles, regardless of who had obtained the Bloodwave token and entered the Bloodwave Temple. Through the comprehension of the complete heavenly Tao, anyone who was not stupid enough should be able to master the principles in 1 month. Once they had mastered the principles, they could easily attack the principles master as long as they had sufficient divine power. Divine power. Jian Wushuang moved his body and suddenly found a large amount of grey fog surging toward him. The grey fog was quite familiar to him. Heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. He clearly remembered that when he had entered the heaven-cleaving mystic realm, he had obtained the powerful divine power of the 6 paths of reincarnation. He had also gained something else. His realm had increased by 2 levels, from a rank 1 true saint to a rank 3 true saint. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. The reason was that there was the same grey airflow in the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. The grey airflow entered his body and made his divine power increase rapidly. The grey fog that was moving toward him along the light beam was obviously of the same nature as the grey airflow in the heaven-cleaving mystic realm, but it was purer and denser than the grey airflow in the heaven-cleaving mystic realm. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A large amount of grey fog swept toward Jian Wushuang, whether he wanted to or not. It rushed directly into his body. Jian Wushuang immediately felt that his divine power was increasing at an astonishing speed. The speed of improvement was much faster than when he ate the divine power fruit. In just a moment, He felt that his divine power had reached the high level of the rank 7 true saint from the initial stage of the rank 7 true saint. It's too fast. This speed of improvement is too fast. At this rate, it won't be long before I reach the peak of a rank 7 true saint. Then, I'll continue to improve and reach the limit of a true saint. Jian Wushuang's eyes were shining. Through the complete eternal heavenly Tao, they could master the principles in a short period of time. Then, through the grey fog, they could accumulate their divine power to the limit, master the principles, and have abundant divine power. The two requirements for breaking through the principles master were met at the same time, which led to 99 out of 100 experts who entered the Bloodwave Temple breaking through to become principles masters. Senior Bloodwave is really incredible. He actually created a complete eternal heavenly Tao. With this complete eternal heavenly Tao, doesn't he create as many principles masters as he wants? Jian Wushuang could not help thinking, but soon he shook his head slightly. He had guessed that the formation of the complete eternal heavenly Tao would not be so easy, and it would probably be limited. Otherwise, the Bloodwave realm would not only open once every 100,000 years. But in any case, the opportunities in the Bloodwave Temple were indeed incredible. The 9 people on the other 9 high platforms around Jian Wushuang were also overjoyed when they saw the magic contained in the complete heavenly Tao. Haha, with the help of this light ball, I'll definitely be able to master a complete set of principles within a month and become a principles master with ease. So this is the opportunity in the Bloodwave realm. It's amazing. With the help of the complete heavenly Tao, I'll be useless if I can't become a principles master. Excited voices sounded in their hearts. The people on the high platform did not waste any time and immediately began to comprehend their own principles. Jian Wushuang naturally closed his eyes and began to comprehend the space-time principles with the help of the complete heavenly Tao in front of him. With the help of the complete heavenly Tao, Jian Wushuang's path of comprehending the space-time principles no longer had any obstacles. He had clearly understood what he had been puzzled about before. As time passed, his comprehension of the space-time principles became higher and higher. On the 16th day, he had completely comprehended the space-time principles. Chapter 3282. He could not make a breakthrough space-time. This is the real space-time. Jian Wushuang's eyes sparkled with a trace of joy. Now, he was clear about the space-time principles and no longer had any doubts. At this moment, he could grasp all the power of the space-time principles that existed between heaven and earth. This kind of complete mastery was completely different from before when he had only comprehended part of it. For example, no matter how high his comprehension of the space-time principles was, the power of the space-time principles that he could use could only be a part of heaven and earth, at most between 40% to 50%. But after completely grasping the space-time principles, the space-time principles that he could use suddenly reached 100%, which was undoubtedly a huge change. However, although I have completely mastered the space-time principles, it doesn't mean that I have reached the limit in the space-time field. After all, I have also mastered the space-time principles, but if different people use it, the strength they will display will be different, Jian Wushuang thought. After completely mastering the space-time principles, the next step of the space-time Tao was to improve the method of using the space-time principles. Do not underestimate this method of use. To many principles masters, the use of the power of principles was an important factor that represented their combat strength. For example, in the temporal temple, many principles masters had already comprehended the principles of time and space, but their strength was still strong and weak. For someone as strong as the temporal temple master, his use of the principles of time and space had already reached the peak. His strength looked down on the entire divine beginning realm. Even the 3 high and mighty saint realm masters were better than the enemy when facing the space-time hall master. As for the weaker ones, like the ordinary principles masters, their use of the space-time principles was very shallow, so their combat strength was not much stronger. Of course, for principles masters, the true decisive difference in strength was still the power of will. Every principles master in the divine beginning realm had at least one part of the power of will. This power of will could come from several aspects, but the most important part was the comprehension of the principles. As long as he had fully comprehended the principles master could have one more part of the power of will. Now that Jian Wushuang had fully comprehended the power of the spacetime principles, he had mastered the spacetime principles. Naturally, he had an additional will power of the spacetime principles. This will power was a spacetime mark that directly entered Jian Wushuang's glabella and merged into his mind. Jian Wushuang could also clearly sense the additional strange power in his mind. He guided this strange power as he pleased. Will power, is this the complete will power? Jian Wushuang exerted strength with both hands, and the strange power in his mind was instantly activated. Buzz, buzz, buzz. He felt that the void in which he was standing was trembling crazily. It's too strong. This will power is really too strong. Jian Wushuang was extremely excited. He had swallowed divine power before, so he had temporarily obtained some of the power of the will. The power of the will contained in the divine power was only a small part of it. Even so, it still made his strength soar. But now, he had comprehended the complete principles and mastered a portion of the power of the will. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. The power of his will was much stronger than before. No wonder the immortal saint can't compete with the principles master in the divine beginning realm. No immortal saint can make up for the power of his will alone. Even for me, although I have a perfect life level and an incredible innate advantage, I'm at the top of the immortal saint realm. At most, I can match the principles master in the power of my divine power, but I can't make up for the difference in the power of my will, Jian Wushuang murmured. The power of will was granted by the principles of heaven and earth, so it was extraordinary. I have comprehended the spacetime principles and gained a portion of the power of will with the help of the complete heavenly Tao for more than 10 days. During this time, my divine power has reached the peak of the immortal saint. I should be able to directly attack the principles master and make a breakthrough easily, but why do I feel like I can't make a breakthrough at all? Jian Wushuang suddenly frowned. If it were an ordinary cultivator, he would have already met all the conditions for a breakthrough. If he chose to make a breakthrough, he would be able to become a principles master. Unfortunately, Jian Wushuang was not an ordinary cultivator. I can't make a breakthrough. Even if I have met all the conditions for a breakthrough, I still can't make a breakthrough. I don't even need to try. Jian Wushuang shook his head secretly, but he was not surprised. He had already guessed it when he was talking to Shui Bo. There were all kinds of special life forms in the world. Although they had a huge innate advantage, they were greatly suppressed by the restrictions of the world. The reason why he could not make a breakthrough was because of the restrictions of the heavenly Tao. For other cultivators, they could make a breakthrough, but he could not. He needed to be stronger and satisfy more difficult conditions than ordinary cultivators. It seems that it's impossible for me to become a principles master in Bloodwave Temple with the help of the opportunities here. Jian Wushuang smiled helplessly, but then he raised his head again. Although I can't break through to become a principles master, the opportunity in front of me is really hard to come by. It's still very helpful to me. I've only used 16 days to completely comprehend the spacetime principles. In the next 14 days, I can completely focus on the reincarnation principles. If I can completely comprehend the reincarnation principles in the remaining time, then I can have an additional power of will. In that case, I won't be any weaker than a real principles master. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly and soon closed his eyes again. He began to study the samsara principles wholeheartedly. Of course, his comprehension of the samsara principles was much lower than that of the spacetime principles. Under such circumstances, it took him 16 days to completely understand the spacetime principles. The remaining 14 days, it was obviously impossible for him to completely understand the samsara principles, but it was enough to greatly improve the samsara principles. Time slowly passed, and in the blink of an eye, 14 days had passed. In the Bloodwave Temple, the 1-month deadline had also arrived. Chapter 3283, Breakthrough after Breakthrough. Phew, is it over? On the high platform, Jian Wushuang slowly opened his eyes. He saw that the light that had been shining on his body had disappeared, and his connection with the light ball in front of him was also slowly disappearing. Indeed, it did not take long. This connection had completely disappeared, and Jian Wushuang could no longer sense any mysterious existence from the light ball. He understood that the 1-month deadline had come to an end, and their opportunity in the Bloodwave Temple had ended. Sure enough, in just 14 days, it's impossible for me to comprehend the samsara principles again. However, in these 14 days, my gains are still not small. A smile appeared on the corner of Jian Wushuang's mouth. During these 14 days, he had been studying the samsara principles. With the help of the complete heavenly Tao cycle, his comprehension of the samsara principles had reached the limit of a saint in just 14 days. He was only one step away from completely grasping it, but that was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that Jian Wushuang had stepped into a new threshold in these 14 days. The threshold was the fusion of principles. The perfect fusion of two different principles. The complete cycle of heavenly Tao in front of Jian Wushuang was formed by the perfect fusion of many principles. Through the complete cycle of heavenly Tao, he could not only clearly see each principle, but also feel how these principles merged together. Therefore, in these 14 days, he also carefully studied the process of merging these principles. Although he did not merge his space-time and samsara principles, he had already seen some of the paths. Although it was just a path, he knew that everything and process started from stepping into the path. Previously, Jian Wushuang did not even know the path. Even if he wanted to merge the two principles, he could not find any place to start. But now, it was different. He had already seen the path, and he had barely comprehended some of the next steps. This was definitely a big step for him. In the future, it would be much easier for him to merge the two principles. Even now, if he was willing, he could still combine the power of the two principles of spacetime and reincarnation at the same time when he attacked. It was similar to Di Hao's ability to superimpose the two principles, but Di Hao was able to do it. Not only did he have a certain understanding of the fusion of the two principles, but it was also related to the giant axe that he had specially refined. However, Jian Wushuang did not need it. Now, he could superimpose the two principles with great ease. Although the power of the explosion could not be compared to the fusion of the two principles, it was definitely much easier than Di Hao's. Naturally, his power was also much stronger. In general, although I did not become a principles master in this month, my gains are definitely not lower than that of becoming a principles master. Jian Wushuang smiled. He was already very satisfied with his gains in this month. At this time, he looked at the high platforms on the side. The people on the high platforms had also cut off their connection with the complete heavenly Tao cycle. However, they did not feel regretful. On the contrary, their faces were filled with smiles. Jian Wushuang had gained a lot in the past month, and their gains were certainly not small. Moreover, when they were able to form a connection with the complete heavenly Tao cycle, they were trying their best to comprehend and improve their strength. Even though they had met the various requirements to become principles masters, they did not immediately break through and continued to comprehend. However, now that they had severed their connection with the complete heavenly Tao cycle, they immediately began to attack the principles master. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. In just a short moment, boom, this great galaxy shook violently, and an incomparably vast and tyrannical aura suddenly spread out from one of the high platforms. As soon as this aura appeared, it immediately attracted the attention of everyone around. It's the Light King. Look at this aura, he has broken through to become a principles master. Thanks, as expected of the number 1 Light King on the True Saint rankings. His speed is really fast. Looks like we have to speed up as well. Everyone sighed in their hearts, but they were not envious. Because they could also break through. Sure enough, not long after the Light King broke through, boom, 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 one after another, a strong aura spread out. The Underworld Emperor, Emperor Hao, Kuzun, several people also broke through to become a Principles Master. Breakthrough, finally breakthrough. Principles Master, I have been waiting for this day for a long time. Principles Master, this is the power of the Principles Master. is really very strong. Hearty laughter echoed in the galaxy. Those who had broken through to Principal's master were naturally very happy and had left their respective high platforms. On the other high platforms, the remaining people were also doing their best to charge at Principal's master. At this time, Emperor Ming and Di Hao had already come to Jian Wushuang's side. "Brother Heavenly Marquis, haven't you broken through yet?" Emperor Ming looked at Jian Wushuang. "I'm not like you. It's not that easy to break through," Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Emperor Ming raised his eyebrows and was not surprised. "In that case, you can break through slowly. Di Hao and I will wait for you outside." "Okay." Jian Wushuang nodded. Not only did Emperor Ming and Di Hao leave, but the others who had broken through to the Principal's master also left one after another. After all, they had obtained the opportunity and become Principal's masters. It was meaningless for them to stay in the Bloodwave Temple. Boom. Boom. The breakthrough still did not end. Han Xin, Silver Wolf, Snow Saint, and the extremely cunning and unknown Invincible Saint also broke through to become Principal's masters. Han Xin, Snow Saint, and the unknown person did not stay in the galaxy for long. They left immediately after the breakthrough. As for Silver Wolf, he paused for a moment. In the center of the galaxy, Silver Wolf looked at Jian Wushuang with a hint of coldness in his eyes. Heavenly Sword Marquis hasn't made the breakthrough yet. If I attack now, can I kill him directly? Silver Wolf pondered. He had made the breakthrough to become a Principal's master, so he naturally thought that he was stronger than Jian Wushuang, who had not made the breakthrough. However, he was hesitating whether to attack or not. It must be known that at the very beginning, the highest level of the three Saint Realms gave the order to kill the Heavenly Sword Marquis at all costs. After discovering that the Heavenly Sword Marquis could not be killed, he ordered them to find a way to prevent Jian Wushuang from getting the Bloodwave command and becoming the Principal's master. Unfortunately, they did not succeed. Now, the Silver Wolf sees an opportunity. Chapter 3284 had been completed. Jian Wushuang, he definitely wanted to kill him, not only himself but also the three Saint Realms behind him. It should be known that the highest level of the three Saint Realms had given the order to kill Heavenly Sword Marquis at all costs. But when they found that Heavenly Sword Marquis could not be killed, they ordered them to find a way to prevent Jian Wushuang from becoming a Principal's master with the Bloodwave token. Unfortunately, they did not succeed. But now, Silver Wolf seemed to see an opportunity. After pondering for a moment, Silver Wolf finally shook his head. Forget it. The life-saving ability of Heavenly Sword Marquis is very good. Although I have broken through to become a Principal's master, I'm still not absolutely sure that I can kill him. At most, I can only hinder his breakthrough. But if he really meets the conditions to become a Principal's master, I can only hinder him now. After he leaves the Bloodwave Temple, he can still break through anytime and anywhere. Besides, this is the Bloodwave Temple after all. No one knows what the principles are. If I attack now and make the master of the Bloodwave Temple angry, I might be the one to suffer. With a sigh, Silver Wolf turned around and left. After Silver Wolf left, Jian Wushuang and Saint Devil's Son were the only two people left in the galaxy. Saint Devil's Son was also a special life form. Although Jian Wushuang guessed that he was only an initial level life form, as long as he was a special life form, he would be restricted. However, the restriction was not as huge as Jian Wushuang's. Saint Devil's Son had already reached the condition of breaking through to become a Principal's master in the past month. However, he needed some time and luck to break through. As for Jian Wushuang, he could not break through to become a Principal's master now, so he had no intention of breaking through here. The reason why he chose to stay was because he wanted to master the Life Divine Power here first. The Life Divine Power was created by the founder of the Temple of Life in order to allow special life forms to make more use of their innate advantages. This divine power was of great use to every special life form, and it was even more useful to perfect life forms like Jian Wushuang. This divine power was extremely complicated, but fortunately, Bloodwave only gave Jian Wushuang the first volume of this divine power. With Jian Wushuang's talent and comprehension, it was not too difficult for him to master it. Time passed, and Jian Wushuang continued to pass. In a flash, another 3 days passed. Boom! A violent rumble suddenly sounded in the galaxy, and the entire galaxy shook violently. On a high platform in the galaxy, a terrifying aura suddenly spread out. 3 days after the others had left, Saint Devil's son, who was a special life form, finally made a breakthrough. His breakthrough was obviously much more significant than that of ordinary people. Fortunately, he was in the Bloodwave realm and not in the Divine Beginning realm, otherwise, it would have been even more significant. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. The breakthrough only lasted for a moment, and then everything began to calm down. Whoosh! A figure suddenly rushed out from the high platform and came to the surroundings of the high platform where Jian Wushuang was. Saint Devil's son, who had become a principal's master, looked down at Jian Wushuang, who was still motionless with his eyes closed. His expression changed slightly. Heavenly Sword Marquis Hassant made a breakthrough. It seems that his life level is slightly higher than mine, Saint Devil's son thought to himself. He did not know how many levels special life forms could be divided into, but he knew that there were strong and weak life levels. Jian Wushuang's performance in the Bloodwave realm had been recognized as a special life form. Naturally, Saint Devil's son was also curious about Jian Wushuang. He wanted to compete with Jian Wushuang and see who had a higher life level. But now, he had a rough guess. The higher the life level, the more difficult it would be to break through from the immortal saint to the principal's master. It took him 3 days to break through to the principal's master, but Jian Wushuang had not made any progress. This was enough to explain the problem. I hope he's lucky. If he doesn't break through to the principal's master level in the end, he'll become a joke, Saint Devil's son muttered and left. After Saint Devil's son left, Jian Wushuang was the only one left in the galaxy. 2 days later, Jian Wushuang finally opened his eyes again. The first volume of the Life Divine Power has finally been completed. Jian Wushuang smiled. Having mastered the Life Divine Power, his appearance and body had not changed at all. However, his understanding of his own life had reached a new level. Lord Bloodwave is right. The innate advantages of special life are far from simple on the surface. It's just that we can't fully exert these advantages. But now, with the full power of the first volume of the Life Divine Power, I should be able to exert 20% of my innate advantages, an innate advantage of 20%. Let's try it. Jian Wushuang's eyes sparkled. Then, he flipped his palm and the Blood Mountain sword appeared in his hand. In this galaxy, Jian Wushuang did not use any secret skill. He just relied on his own strength and swung his sword. He did not use any sword skill. Even so, the moment he swung the Blood Mountain sword, a terrifying sword shadow suddenly took shape. The terrifying sword shadow cut through the void with an earth-shaking power, leaving an extremely long distance before gradually dissipating. This sword attack of mine should not be weaker than an ordinary principal's master's attack, right? Jian Wushuang smiled. This sword attack of his was just a casual sword attack. He did not use any means, and of course, he did not use any life force divine power. He only used his current divine power to execute this sword attack. But one had to know that during the 1 month in this galaxy, his divine power had been constantly increasing. Now, his divine power had already reached the limit of a true saint. In other words, in terms of realm, he was already an invincible saint. As a perfect level life force, once he reached the invincible saint realm, his innate divine power advantage allowed his divine power to completely rival that of an ordinary principal's master. In other words, every move of his could unleash the power of the principal's master's divine power. Then, Jian Wushuang began to activate his life divine power. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Jian Wushuang's divine body was trembling, and a strong aura of life gradually emerged. The moment he activated his life divine power, Jian Wushuang clearly sensed that the hidden power in his body had been activated. Although he had only activated a part of it, it was still enormous. Chapter 3285, Power of Two Wills. Buzz. Jian Wushuang struck again. It was also an ordinary sword move without any techniques. However, he had only used his own strength to perform the previous sword move, but this sword move, he had used his life divine power to fully display 20% of the innate advantage of his perfect life. Whoosh! The sword shadow passed by the galaxy in front of him and instantly caused the entire galaxy to tremble crazily. The countless dazzling stars in the galaxy seemed to have lost their light in front of this sword light. This sword attack was exceptionally eye-catching. The sword light fell, and the galaxy was finally completely cut open. A large amount of power swept out crazily like a tide. Just the power that spread out. In Jian Wushuang's eyes, it was enough to kill the invincible saints easily. This power was above that of an ordinary principal's master. After a long time, the power finally dissipated and the galaxy calmed down. However, Jian Wushuang was still too excited to calm down. It's too strong. My sword is too strong. It feels like it's dozens of times stronger than the sword I just used. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. The sword he just used with his divine power was not weaker than an ordinary principal's master, but dozens of times stronger than that one. What did that mean? Under normal circumstances, even if a principal's master used all the power of his will in his body, he could not increase his attack dozens of times. Now that I've used my life divine power to bring out my innate advantage to a greater extent, the extra power feels like it's comparable to the power of my will. Jian Wushuang was very excited. It was very difficult to obtain the power of will. In addition to completely mastering a principle, only by opening up his own mystic realm of heaven and earth or fusing principles could he gain more power of will. But now, Jian Wushuang was able to gain more power of will just by relying on a special divine power he got from Bloodwave. What a huge advantage was this! Moreover, Jian Wushuang had already completely mastered the principles, so he already had a portion of the power of will. A portion of the power of my will, coupled with the additional power of my life divine ability, is equivalent to one portion of the power of my will. In other words, I now have 2 portions of the power of my will. Jian Wushuang was stunned. A rule master with one part of his will power could only be considered an ordinary principal's master. If he had 2 parts of his will power at the same time, he was not considered weak among principal's masters. However, Jian Wushuang now had 2 parts of his will power at the same time. In addition to his life level, his basic divine power was no weaker than that of a principal's master. Even the secret skills he cultivated from the 7-star mysterious sect were extraordinary. In total, he was now comparable to those principal's masters who had 2 wills. I still have many trump cards, especially the heaven-cleaving skill created by my master, which can also allow me to display more of my innate advantages. This heaven-cleaving skill is barely comparable to the power of 1 will. In total, doesn't that mean I have the power of 3 wills? Jian Wushuang was shocked, even he himself was shocked by this result. Not long ago, he was just an immortal saint, and he could only avoid meeting the principal's master. However, in the blink of an eye, he had divine power comparable to the principal's master, and it was equivalent to having 30% of the power of his will. One had to know that a principal's master who could have 3 parts of his will at the same time was definitely a peak existence among the many principal's masters in the divine beginning realm. It was a huge improvement from an immortal saint to a level that was almost comparable to a top-notch principal's master. All of this was largely due to the opportunity in Bloodwave Temple. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Bloodwave Temple was the dream place of countless immortal saints. Many of them had broken through to become principal's masters through Bloodwave Temple. However, for Jian Wushuang, although he did not break through to become a principal's master in Bloodwave Temple, his gains were even greater than breaking through to become a principal's master directly. Most importantly, he saw Bloodwave, learned about many secret existences, knew about the Life Palace, and also came into contact with the universe. My gains are so great. Even if I can't break through to become a principal's master, I'm satisfied. Now, it's time to leave. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. He did not miss this galaxy too much. He walked out directly. Outside the Bloodwave Palace, there was a sea of people. During the month when Jian Wushuang and the others entered the Bloodwave Palace and obtained the opportunity, the many saint experts who had stayed in the Bloodwave Palace did not leave. Instead, they stood there and waited quietly. After waiting for a full month, finally, people came out of the Bloodwave Palace one after another. The first one to come out was the Light King. The Light King is out. Judging from his aura, he has indeed broken through to become the principal's master. It's normal. His strength is publicly recognized as the number one among the invincible saints. It's impossible for him to not break through in the Bloodwave Hall with such strength. When the Light King was a saint, his combat strength was already so strong. Moreover, he had already fused with the two great principals very early on. Now that he has broken through to the principal's master, it's very possible for him to directly obtain 2 portions of the power of will. How strong must his strength be? Who knows? In any case, he is very strong. Countless gazes gathered on the Light King who had just walked out of the Bloodwave Hall. Most of these gazes were filled with reverence, but at the same time, there was also hidden envy and jealousy. The principal's master was something that everyone yearned for. But unfortunately, they had already missed the opportunity in the Bloodwave Hall this time. After the Light King, the others also walked out one after another. Just as everyone thought, those who entered the Bloodwave Hall alone almost became the principal's masters after coming out. The Underworld Emperor, Emperor Hao, Master Ku, and the others, as well as the invincible saint who was only lucky enough to get a Bloodwave token but was relatively average in strength, also directly broke through to become the principal's masters. Even a special life form like the Saint Devil's Son also broke through to become the principal's masters and walked out of the Bloodwave Hall. Since then, 9 out of 10 people who had entered Bloodwave Temple had stepped out, and all of them had broken through to principal's master. As for the last person, of course, it was Jian Wushuang. 9 of them have come out, and all of them have broken through to principal's master. All that's left is Heavenly Sword Marquis. Why hasn't Heavenly Sword Marquis come out yet? I don't know. It's probably because of some special reason. After all, He's also a special life form. When he breaks through, he still needs to spend some effort. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.